Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Cammy Benton. We are here with Constance Santos with Tiny Toes Newborn Consulting. And, as I've discussed before in the podcast, is that my whole desire is to provide information that I wish I would have had when my kids were little. I felt really alone and I didn't have very many resources. And although that's been a while back now, there's way more resources now. And almost is even kind of confusing how much information's out there and sort of navigating all these different topics for our children is what's right for you. And what's right for you might not be right for the next person. And so I'm very excited to have Constance Santos here. We're going to learn about her and what inspired her to be here serving her community and helping little babies sleep better. So, Constance, tell me about you and sort of your background and what got you into this.
Sure. Yeah, so I have been nannying since I was probably in middle school. So that was kind of where I found my love for kids and especially the little newborns. And I think like a lot of women, you kind of get thrown into this a caretaker role, pretty early on in life. And so I nannied all through college, so, over a decade when you add it all up of nannying, and I wanted to combine that with healthcare, and so I eventually became a nurse because who else is a better caretaker than a nurse, you know? So I was a nurse for over 6 years. I ended up doing critical care and eventually stayed home with my first son, and I never went back to the bedside. So I've been home and I really dove into the baby world and realized there was a lot lacking in the baby world. There's a million and one products. You don't know which one is the best one. I had my son during COVID, so we couldn't go out to the stores and try things out. We were away from our family. No one really had babies before me that really knew like a lot about products. So I could ask some people like, "Oh, what did you use? What did you use?" But it was very limited. And so that's kind of how I got into like baby gear. And so we've been traveling. My husband likes to move us around a lot for work. So we've moved several states now. And now we finally are settled. And I said, it's time for me to start something of my own. And I really want to help moms because along the way, I've been helping my friends and family that have had children after me. And I see it on social media. I see it within the community that people don't have their village. They don't have people around them. They don't have, a good place to ask and to get an unbiased opinion. Unfortunately, when you go to social media and you're looking for recommendations on things, everything is a plug to sell something. And so you really have to be careful when somebody's telling you to buy this car seat or this product is going to change your life. And where is that really coming from? And a lot of waste in the industry and a lot of people like wish I didn't buy so much stuff. I wish I would have known I didn't need all these things. So I really got into it thinking that I was going to help families with baby gear, but it kind of meshes together with sleep because we are recommending products for babies to be sleeping at. And so in my own, children struggled with sleep. So I've merged those two things into my business and I'm planning on other ways of helping moms in that newborn stage with products, with car seats, with baby wearing. And so it's really about an all encompassing village that I'm building of information for people that don't have it, that don't know where to turn to, and I kind of give a crunchy mom edge to it and lean towards it. So the families that are looking for maybe a little bit more holistic, program for sleep, people that are looking for gear that doesn't have flame retardants or uses a little bit better fabrics. I'm that source to kind of get through all the noise of the baby industry because I've spent hours researching and getting frustrated and not figuring out, the right thing. So that's where Tiny Toes came about is just to help to all the moms and, dads out there that are confused and need advice.
That's incredible because even I've looked, I will do searches sometimes, and you think, oh, I'll do a top review. You look up the review, and then it's all around paid advertising,
Yes. Mhm.
and I'm like, how do I dig past that?
Yes.
And But it's definitely a whole different ballgame. My children are all teenagers now, and so there was a lot less available at that time.
Mhm.
And also there's all the Bluetooth and the flame retardants that we just didn't even know. And I had even read about greening my house at that time, but I can't tell you how much stuff I added in that I was like, gosh, I still
Yeah.
didn't even know. The
Mhm.
Bluetooth, like the Bluetooth, the fabric quality and the frequency of the fabrics even that the babies are on. And even some of the things are, like, harming the kids more
Yes.
because of, I guess, the sleep position or being a neck position. There's a there because babies also need to be on the ground a lot more than what we put them on.
Yes.
So tell me some of the top tips that you can think of that sort of
So, like
wouldn't.
you said, even with my son, I have almost a 5-year age gap. So, even the amount of products that come out in 5 years has changed dramatically. When I was looking for things, I had a hard time finding not everything being plastic. Finding stainless steel, finding glass bottles, finding silicone options. And so, you do end up bringing a lot of things into your home that you kind of already got rid of, right? If you already greened your house and got green products, I pride myself that I had already kind of cleaned up our food and our household products and things like that. Now, all of a sudden, baby comes and it's kind of hard to find those options. And then you're bringing all these things in that you didn't want to bring in. So I think a big one right off the bat is putting, your breast milk in plastic bags. That for me, I didn't want to do that. Now, a lot of people do that and it's fine, and it's expensive to not do it any other way. The industry is changing and there is, some options out there, but I had a hard time navigating that and because that was something I held on that I didn't want to do. And so that's a big one. So that right there and then with sleep,
So what's
there
available now for that? Actually curious
there's
because I
yeah.
definitely had tons of bags of breast milk
Yeah, I
myself.
mean, it happens, and it's
Yeah.
like when you're trying to be mindful of the environment and you're using all these single-use plastics, it's really frustrating. So right now, there's a lot of actually silicone options. There's molds, which are really good. So you can mold and freeze little bricks and then pop it out and put it into whatever you want. So if you want to put it in a glass container, you want to put it in a bag. So it's things like that, a silicone bag even if you use a plastic bag, a single use, but you can use less of it, that's an improvement. So if you can freeze in a huge tray of milk, pop it all out and then put it into like say a gallon size bag, you're using less. So
Mm.
there are options like that. And then obviously like there's glass bottles and glass jars and things like that. So, you have to have the space and like I said, it is a pricier option, but it is available.
Some people just don't even think about that part
Yeah.
because we've gotten so accustomed to using Ziploc bags everywhere, and usually it's like some things they're so deep, the amount of things that we've kind of gotten accustomed to,
Yes.
that to unravel that, it is every time when you hear that, you're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that too," and it can get overwhelming too.
Oh, it's overwhelming and it takes a lot of work and you're going against the grain. So a lot of people are like, why? Why are you doing that? Why aren't you just doing plastic? Like, why aren't you just using the bags? And you can get them free a lot of times from your insurance. So obviously when everyone, is gotta be mindful of money right now. Budgets are tight. Baby gear is so expensive that I get like when it's free, hey, take it. And so I back then, I don't remember my insurance offering that. I do this time around, second time around, but I really didn't want my breast milk in plastic. And so that was, a huge, undertaking of just even figuring that. So
Alright, so you are gonna go into another, item that's super common or
yeah, so then in terms of sleep is, finding a crib and a mattress that is, organic or using a little bit better materials, breathability. And so, finding an option that's safe, that it can work for your family. It's hard to find products these days. Everybody has a claim, right? They all have a claim that it's green or it's this or it's that. One thing I had an issue with was that there's a lot of breathable crib mattresses and they claim that, which is great and there's nothing wrong, but there's not any real proof to it either. In terms of just cribs and newborn sleep, there's a lot of products out there that they have a lot of claims, but then not necessarily are that proof. There's not much proof. So we kind of have to just go by what the manufacturers, telling us. And I think anything is better than nothing. I think there are some, specifically in the crunchy mom community, they get really hung up on like, you think something might be relatively clean and then like, no, it's not, and we don't need to be that divided about things. I think if anybody's trying to do a little bit improvement in terms of not using traditional, ingredients or materials or taking chemicals out, I think that's always a good thing. Whatever you can afford and, is in your budget, then that's what I think you should do. So, it's not that like there's one best product. I think it's just what you're okay with, what you can afford, what's in your market, what's in, your availability. And so that's what I try to help families, navigate, because a lot of brands will get really popular and everyone just like blanket recommends one product or another, but it might not work for your family. There's not one perfect stroller, there's not one perfect car seat. There's so many brands, and it's because everybody is different. Every car is different. Every baby is different. So one product's not going to fit one baby to the next the same way. But what we should be doing is always recommending safe options. And that's where I try to hone in on with families, is that just because it's known and it's out there doesn't mean it's safe. There's a lot of brands out there that have, questionable marketing, kind of unsafe things. There's not a whole lot of regulation in the baby industry. Cribs and car seats there are, but in terms of other, areas, it's a little bit more gray. And even in terms of car seats, which, regulated by the federal government, there's dupes out there and there's fakes, which I didn't know. And so they're being peddled on social media, and people are trying to find a more affordable option to, something that they've heard of that's, again, a name. And they see this cheaper option and they have no idea that it's completely unregulated. It's unsafe. These products are getting through and they have no regulation. And so we
How
really
they find out? Like,
it's
how do
on
you find this out?
it's I get them. I get them on TikTok. I get like videos of this stroller and, click a link and buy it, and these products are getting through constantly on the US market, and they have zero regulation and there's zero accountability by these companies. And even if you're buying on Amazon, these other third-party marketplaces, these companies are getting through. There's just too many of them to stop. And so, a lot of times, even if there is a recall, they might not respond. They might not work with CPSC. And so then you're out that money and you bought, potentially dangerous product. And
Mm.
so, um, I try to encourage families to really stick with brands that are well known, that have been in the industry a long time, and that are the original. Like, be very careful when you're looking at a dupe. It might look just like it, but it could have no safety standards. It could have no regulation. It could have no testing. And so that's where I really try to recommend products, is that, make sure it's safe, and it's doing what it's intended to do, because we don't need, something else to happen. We already have enough, injuries and deaths every year in children from unsafe products, from misuse of products. So that's where I hone in on too with families, is really educating on every product is different. You need to be reading your manuals. You need to know that product. And if you're talking about car seats, you need to know your car seat inside and out. Like, you need to be the expert in your baby. You need to be the expert in your products that you own, because that is what's going to be, best for baby and keep them the safest.
I also really think that we need to be way more simple than what we're filling our baby registry with
Yes.
so many different things.
Yes.
Like, I and in retrospect, like, gosh, we had the bouncy seats, we had, like, the little, like, not the strollers, the little things
Like
that
the
you sit
walkers, like the activity
walkers and things
centers.
like that. Because
Yeah.
that was, like, what you did back in the
Yeah.
day, and
Yes.
then my kids end up with flat heads on the
Yes.
back, or if they were there too much, because I was working all the time, so they were
Yes.
just sitting there in the little bouncy seat,
Yeah.
and because we're afraid to put them on the ground, when
Yes.
really the kids need to be on the floor.
Yes.
And it's truly, I learned, there's a thing called MRI, it's about reflex integration therapy, and they said
Mhm.
that your reflexes are supposed to be integrated by 12 months of age, but they're saying that close to 99% of kids are not fully integrated by 5 years because of all these things that we're doing to keep them off the floor.
Yes.
So what do you have to say about that?
So I am anti-containers. So I am definitely like less is more. Put these babies on the floor. They need tummy time. And so I'm always kind of educating families when they're looking at these products that, we don't need all the things. Like we don't need to be adding a million things to our baby registry. We don't need to be like everything now is like 100, 200, 300, $700. Like we don't need that many expensive items for baby. Less is definitely more. If you can find products that are multi-purpose, I'm a fan of. A real easy one is if you can get a bassinet for your stroller that also then has a stand and it's approved for overnights, you can use it in your home. Like you don't need to have multiple options, multiple bassinets, multiple car seats. There's people out there that are buying, the Duna stroller car seat, which I hate. I don't even call that a stroller. It's a car seat on wheels. And then they're also buying another infant car seat. And, even if they know the 2-hour rule, they unfortunately don't realize that it's not just taking your baby out for 5 minutes. Like you need to be out more than you're in these containers. So then if you think about like your baby's going from a bouncer or some sort of swing, and then you're running out errands and you're sticking them in the infant car seat, and then you're running errands and you don't want to get them out. So then you're clicking it into the stroller, and then you're back in the car, and then you're back home. You've spent the whole day in a container. And so we're seeing a lot of issues with babies, how, like you said, with reflexes, with muscle tension. They're just not hitting milestones. They're not developing like they're supposed to. And if you talk to any sort of like PTs, MDs, pediatricians, they're going to tell you. And that these things are happening. And it's just because we know more, right? Like a lot of people are like, well, we did this back in the day. I did this. My mom did this with me. It's that we know more now. We're seeing it more. It's out there being talked about more, but also there's just more devices. There's more containers. There's more, just families are busy. They're doing things and they're on the go. And so these babies are in these containers a lot longer. And so I'm always trying to educate families to be a little bit more mindful about how much time they are in these containers, because it does the flat heads, all the muscle tension, the reflexes, all that is being affected
Mm,
for sure.
that is so helpful that I wish every parent could hear this before they go fill up their registry with things. And I did the same. So I'm not judging at all. I just didn't
Right.
know. And my kids had a lot of those effects from that.
Mhm.
And I very quickly, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that did not turn out
Yeah.
in
And
place.
there's starting to be some regulation and some change in the market. Like they just recently changed loungers, baby loungers, because so many people were using them for sleep, even though that they were marketed for, just a week time, like just laying on the floor type thing. People were putting them inside cribs, putting them inside bassinets, and babies were dying every year from suffocation. And so they finally changed that. But how many babies passed away that could have been prevented because of that product, And so it's really unfortunate that, these things are happening and it takes so long. There's such a lag behind before industry, realizes that, maybe we shouldn't be, putting this product out there, and somebody's doing something about it to change it.
Yeah, actually, one was more my own self because I remembered it was already becoming, you were not supposed to have bumpers on the cribs
Mhm.
at that time. But like, I had one kid that I swear that child had arms and legs in the middle of the night that would get stuck
Yeah,
outside
yeah,
the crib,
yeah,
and I finally gave up and I just got a bumper. I was like, I could because she was just all over the place. What would you do for like a parent like that had a child that of my 3 children, she's the only one who did that. Like it
yeah,
was the other ones were fine, and that never became an issue, but that child, I was like, have
yeah.
to rescue her, like, almost on a daily until I finally gave up.
Yeah. So thankfully, like crib standards have changed, more recently so that the slats are not as wide as they used to, like when you and I were babies and, our parents. So that's why they always say is as nice it is as it is for like a grandparent or something to give you, oh, this was your crib when you were a baby. It's not safe anymore. It's not up to the same standards. And what I've heard pediatric ER physicians say we would much rather fix a broken leg or an arm that potentially got trapped, which is very rare, than to have you come in with a baby that's no longer breathing because you it was unsafe. In terms of like products that are out there now, even if like cribs are still, an issue, with your little one in specific, there's play yards, there's pack and plays. There are cribs now that are made with mesh sides. So no rails at all. But it's a very taut mesh that's the actual side of the crib. So there are other options. And that's what the good thing. Even like I work with, co-sleepers, people that are bed sharing and then they no longer want their baby to be in their bed. And they have a hard time adjusting to going to a crib. So I always suggest like get a play yard so that you can lay in there with your baby until they fall asleep, and then you can crawl out and zip them up, and then they're in somewhere safe. And then as, they get used to that, you start coming out earlier and earlier and earlier so that they're
Yeah.
sleeping more independently. So there are options out there, to help families. And so I get those questions where, well, my baby's in a bassinet, what can I do? Or is this product okay? Because they don't always have clear guidelines on some of these products. And so even if like a bassinet or a co-sleeper says 6 months, I always tell families, if it's not a really well-known brand, even if it is, like you should be checking your manufacturer's like manuals and see what is it saying. Is it saying 6 months or is it saying until XYZ? And that's usually what it's saying is that they like to advertise on the headline, oh, 6 months, but it's really, is baby rolling over? Is baby pushing up? And that's when you need to discontinue it and you need to go to something else. So in the newborn phase, a lot of times you see it where families are sticking in these newborn options too long. So whether it's the bassinet, whether it's the infant car seat, the babies aren't supposed to be in them that long. And they're kind of holding on to the newborn phase and they're like, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to get rid of it. And I get it because, baby grows up way too fast. But really what's safest is to move them to that next stage.
So you also do, I guess, consulting to help them sleep through the night
Mhm.
as well. So it's not just the products that you help them to sort of navigate,
Mhm.
but it's also supporting them. Tell you, I read a book called Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. I don't know if that's still in vogue or not, but that one saved my life. I was like, I just have to put them to sleep earlier because I remembered, people saying like, oh, if you just keep them up later, they'll sleep later. I'm like,
No.
mm-mm.
That's
That
the
was the
opposite.
opposite.
That's the opposite.
I
Yeah.
was like, I became so strict. I thought I was gonna be the cool mom.
Yeah.
I did it again. So, yeah, I remembered when, people were like, "Oh, yeah, you keep them up later and they'll sleep later." And that just made my kids, like, wake up way more frequently. I remember when I learned that trick, I had really all my kids sleeping at 6 months for 13 hours a night,
Yeah.
but they had to sleep at 5 or 5:30, and
Yes.
that was the thing. I
Yes.
was thinking of, like, 7 or 8, but if I put them to bed at 5, 5:30, they would sleep 13 hours straight.
Yes.
They would nap better, they would eat better, they were happy,
Mhm.
but if I missed by 1 hour, gosh, those kids would wake up every 3 hours, wake up they'd sleep, 10 or 11 hours instead of the 12 or 13 hours. It was an impressive difference in their nervous system regulation,
Mhm.
as I just like yeah, that changed my whole life, like, reading that book. I was
Yeah.
like, "Thank you," and it gave me evidence for my their dad at the time that
Mhm.
was like, "But I don't ever get to see them." I'm like, "I don't really care.
Yeah.
I want them to sleep."
Yeah.
And that created because that was a big deal when you have different understandings of sleep for parents
Mhm.
too, but they're like, one doesn't understand it. But so if you could speak more on that.
Yeah, sure. My son was the same way, and we missed a lot of things when he was little, but that was just the season of life we were in. Every baby is different, and their temperaments, their personality, their sleep needs are different. So that's why I don't really like to get too hung up on schedules with families. I give them, windows. So we kind of have to look at like the whole 24 hours, and it's helpful to write down or keep track of the baby's sleep needs over a few days or a week and look at that and see what are they really averaging every night, and are they waking up happy? Are, like you said, are they eating well? Are they playful during the day? And then maybe for that baby, they don't need as much sleep as you think, or what, one sleep consultant says, or what Wake Windows says. So I really try to look at the whole picture of what's going on with the whole family and their needs and their sleep schedules and what they're doing and what naps are looking like and things like that. So it's not like a rigid schedule because not every baby needs a behavioral change, and that's what sleep training is. And I think a lot of families, especially in the crunchy community, they don't want that. They're pushing away from behavioral. They are more worried about, nurturing and attachment, which I feel that. Like I felt that with my own son. I wasn't comfortable with sleep training and I was really, really nervous to start a sleep training program because I had heard all these horrible things of, cry it out and letting, babies just figure it out. And nowhere in parenting do we just like throw them off the deep end and let them learn a new skill on their own. So why
But
are
they're
we
little babies. They're not developmentally like
they're not
able.
developmentally able to do that. So
Right.
if they need us for co-regulation in every other sense of their life, why is it with sleep? It's let's just leave them in their crib and walk away. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't it hurt my mama heart. And so I struggled with that with my son. And he was a good sleeper initially when he was, 6. He started sleeping through the night like 6 weeks old or something like that. And then, we moved, we were doing a lot of things. And so he wasn't sleeping well. And he was probably 8 or 9 months. And he was waking up more than a newborn. And so I was like, we got to do something. And went through the research. I delved through, I was looking at programs and I decided on one. And when I finally, paid for it, opened it up, I was really disappointed with it. This is not what I wanted to do. And I struggled with doing the program because I wasn't comfortable with it. And so I did a lot of modifications. And the consultant very much had in there that, if you do modifications, it's going to take longer and, all this fear mongering, right? And my success rate's 99% with, if you do it my way. First of all, that's completely like
Mhm.
inaccurate. Like if anyone
Every
gives
kid looks
you,
different from
yeah, every kid's different. If somebody's giving you a guarantee on sleep, you need to run for the hills. Like it's just not accurate. And so I was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care if it takes longer. I'm going to do modifications that I'm okay with. And, we did get him sleeping better, but that whole first 2 years, there's so much going on developmentally that babies are learning and growing and doing, and so many synapses are, being built in their brain that you are going to have nights where they're not going to sleep great. You're not going to get perfection every single night.
and
And
there's
so
nothing wrong with them.
exactly. There's
Not
nothing that needs to be
pathological.
fixed.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
nothing needs to be fixed. And so, that's what I really try to, work on with families is just, we can work on things. We can definitely make things better. It's not gonna be perfect, and every kid's different. I found with my son, his sweet spot, like you said, like super early, he needed to go to bed by 6:45. If we missed that, like, it was over. And the older generation, they don't get that, and they're like, "Oh, you guys just passed out wherever we were, why don't you just leave them up?" And I got the same things, that probably a lot of moms get, like, "Just come on, just bring them, just skip a nap, just skip push bedtime. Why you're missing all the things?" And I'm like, "Because I'm the one that's gonna be up with him all night long. I'm gonna be the one dealing with his screaming and his crying and his overtiredness." I remember specifically we were at Disney one and we did a trip and I stayed up way too late. Stayed for the fireworks. He was screaming for almost 2
Mm.
hours in my arms because and I was holding him and he was so overtired. And I was like, I'm never doing it again. I'm never, I, c- you know, I,
It's
c-
not worth it.
it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So
Quite frankly, we're getting them to adjust to I call it the industrialization of motherhood, really, and we've had generations of this, and I am guilty as just the next. I'm not judging anyone out there. I had to navigate this stuff myself, but, like, there's a time and a season for the babies to be babies,
yes.
and there are real sacrifices that we have to make. It's not about our comfort,
Mhm.
it's about their neurologic needs. Like,
Yes.
the occasional thing is one thing. Like,
Yes.
sometimes it just is what it is. There's, again, no need to be so rigid all the time.
Right.
I definitely find that the kids that are, like, waking up a lot and struggling to go to sleep, or they're just overtired.
Yes.
Overtired,
Yes.
period.
Mhm. There needs to be a balance, like, and you can't have all the naps in a crib every single day and not have a life, but you also can't have every nap out and it being interrupted and short and being, 15 minutes either. You gotta have a balance. And like you said, every kid is different and you're figuring it out as you go with every kid. You start to see those patterns, you start to recognize like their needs. And it's such a short period of time in their life and our lives that we really have to put them first and think about what's best for them, and I think a lot of parents struggle because they haven't seen babies, they haven't been around babies. They have no idea like how that is until they're in it. They think they're going to have their baby and then everything's going to go back to normal. But you're a completely different person after birth. Like you are not the same person and life is never going to be the same as much as people tell you that and you think it's like cliche or whatever. It's true, and so it's just realizing that and everybody kind of gets to it in their own way, in their own time.
Yeah, in so many cultures, they have aunties and grandmas and many generations in one household.
Yes.
Now, I love my family, and I'm glad I don't have to have that. And the shadow side of that is that you're having to learn a lot of things on your own, and because of the industrialization of motherhood
Mhm,
and the family unit in the last 100 years, there's a lot of ancient wisdom that we no longer have.
mhm.
And so we're having to recreate this and digging in and trying to learn from the other cultures that we consider backwards or
Yeah.
third world.
Yep.
Like, y'all, that's just a story
Mhm.
that we've been told
Yeah.
that there is so much wisdom in those backwards or third world,
Mhm.
throw those terms away and
Yes.
actually maybe go in with curiosity about what we've lost
Mhm.
and so, yeah, we're having to recreate this and study those cultures and like, oh gosh, like there's so much beauty that we have missed and that wisdom of yeah, it's the sisterhood, really a lot of the sisterhood. And so we're having to recreate this by these podcasts and by these businesses. And we're hoping and praying that when our children are older that they have the support that we've learned a lot of stuff and then but we keep learning, and then maybe by then, their time to have children, then they'll have a lot more support than what we had.
100%. I always hope and wish that the next generation has more support than what we have now. I think as women, we're expected to do everything and be everything and have a baby and just go right back to work. And if you look at these other countries and these other societies, they take this time, pregnancy, postpartum, really a lot more seriously and they protect it. And, it's this beautiful time of growing and healing and recovery. And they nurture the women. They bring people in and they help them. And so it's just a completely different lifestyle world that we are in. We don't have any of that support. And then we're told, all right, go back to work. And so it's really, really hard.
Yes. I have a friend, she's from India, and she in the first 3 months, I mean, she's not allowed to pick up a broom. Like, she doesn't wash a dish,
Yeah.
she doesn't and I remember going to go visit her because I had 1 kid in the car seat, 1 kid on a hip. I think we were just, like, a week or 2 out from my C-section. I had a C-section,
Yeah.
and their dad was not helping out very much, but so when I went in, she's like, "What are you doing? Stop." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
She's like, "You can't pick them up." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Who's gonna pick them up?" Like, it just was so second nature to, like, we had become hyper independent,
Mhm. Mhm.
hyper just, like, on the go, not understanding, and she's like, "I haven't lifted a finger and I won't for another, like, 2.5 months," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Really? What's that like?" I
Yeah.
had no clue what that was like, and it just really hit me. Sorry, I looked at her, I was like, "Yes, I want more of this. I want
Yeah.
this." I just didn't know, we've cut ourselves off from that so much for survival
Mhm.
and somewhat necessity in a lot of ways because we just don't have that family support. But her family came over, she didn't have to lift a finger.
Yeah.
I was jealous.
Yeah. Oh, I would be too. I mean, even in other countries, they send over, postpartum doulas and night nannies and night nurses to care for women and care for their babies. And it's just such a service that women can actually recover. I recently was talking with somebody else that helps with baby gear as well. And, she was recommending infant car seats and she was looking for a lighter weight one for moms that have to go up and down the stairs. And it's just, these are the things that some families don't even like fathom, and and like you said, like you're a week postpartum. You're not supposed to be lifting an infant car seat with a baby inside. Like that's like what, 20, 30 pounds, depending on your car seat and the baby and stuff. So, a good 20 pounds. And so, why, we're killing
Ridiculous. It's
ourselves.
ridiculous.
Oh, like we're killing ourselves to, to be these hyper independent, I can do it all women. And we really, need to get back to let's slow it down. Let's get some help. Let's ask for help and, get some support and allow that support.
Well, it's actually, and especially in the times of, the economy is so tight for so many people right now too. And some of that used to happen. It's like when we needed babysitters like 40, 50 years ago, the neighbors just, they pitched in. It
Yeah.
was just, it was not a commodity.
Yes.
But daycare has become such a commodity. There is no such thing as babysitting without a financial exchange.
Yes.
It'd be so nice if we could somehow kind of go back a little bit to where we just really, again, as a sisterhood, if we could create a network for
Yes.
mothers to support each other and take turns, maybe it's like bring the community back. I think that's the way that we have to move forward. Because no wonder so many mothers have postpartum depression. It is so egregious what we expect mothers to do postpartum and that fourth trimester.
Mhm.
So I don't know, ladies out there, maybe we can like create a little babysitting network of
Yeah.
just support. So it's not always a cost for just to get a few hours
Yeah.
of fresh air or just to be able to breathe. Like
Yes.
that's just my call to action there out there
Yeah.
to mothers
That
because
would
we
be
need
amazing.
it.
Yeah. And it's like how many people, we don't even know our neighbors anymore, let alone trust them enough with our kids.
Right.
And so women really do feel like they don't have another choice. They have to do everything themselves. It's all on them. And that's hard. That's a huge load to bear. That's, it's sometimes it's insurmountable. So like you said, a lot of women with postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and they struggle. They struggle and until, they get out on the other side, they maybe realize it, maybe not, and unfortunately a lot of times they don't have another option. But even if you could find a support group to talk to, just somebody else that's going through it, and so that's what I always say, like, I'm here to be that village to help, to say, "I've been through it, I've had 2 kids, I've done all the things, and so I've seen it, I heard it, I've done it, and I'm here to help you wherever I can," and if that's just even an encouraging word, then, that's what I'm gonna do.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Constance, for being on here sharing what you do. Tell us a little bit more about your business and how that works to get more support from you.
Sure. So, you can head over to my website. I have a 15-minute free discovery call where we talk about what your needs are, what you're looking for. And then based on that, we can have a virtual consult, whether that's, baby registry, you need help picking out gear, and you can send me over, like, these are the things I'm looking at. These are the brands, this is our budget. And what are some good options to, helping you prepare for baby? So you can take the newborn class for sleep before baby gets here. I always feel like that's a good option for families, and they're already prepping, they're already taking classes, they're already getting everything ready. Take a sleep class so that you know what's lies ahead and you have tools in your toolbox. Because, when you're there by yourself at home in the middle of the night, you want to have resources to go to. So I say you can take my newborn class before baby gets here is great. If not, it's available to you for anyone, until 4 months is the newborn class. And then after that, I have 5 months and up is a package for more options for sleep teaching. I don't call it sleep training. It's sleep teaching. And it's, looking at more things that we can do and incorporate and change in terms of like daytime routines and schedules to get baby sleeping better. And then I hope to offer more newborn services here in the near future. I have some things in the works that I'm working on. What's really exciting is that recently I've joined with Tot Squad and Target. So any families that are in the Charlotte area, there's 3 Target stores, and it's going to be Blakeney, Matthews, and North Lake that are offering free baby registry appointments. And I'm going to be out of Blakeney and Matthews. It's right now it's in 200 stores nationwide. So Target has launched this new baby department. They're putting specialists in there and they're helping families and they have no obligation to buy. They don't have to make a registry. They can rebook as many times as they want. It's just a free service for families that need support. So, that was right up my alley, so when I heard about it, I was like, "I have to get in with this." That's what I wanna do. I wanna be helping families. So, I'm in those 2 stores, and, I have links to go right to my booking page, and, like I said, if you have 100 questions, rebook as many times as you want, keep coming back. Every appointment is 45 minutes long for you to decide how you wanna use it.
That is incredible that Target's doing that. Wonderful. I mean, it makes sense for them business wise, but
Yeah,
like the fact that they have people to help. Because honestly, I was just like, well, that looks cool. That looks cool.
yeah, yeah,
And then you end up with all this stuff. You're like, this is crazy.
yeah,
Like, this is, and it's also expensive and
yeah,
unnecessary, just
yes,
unnecessary. So thank you, Constance,
yeah,
for
of course.
bringing your passion forward. And that's what I found, usually when you go through things yourself and challenges yourself and you're like, there has to be a better way to do this. And then you create that solution, that's when it's
Yeah,
useful. So
yeah,
thank you so
absolutely.
much. And we'll definitely put the links underneath the site here whenever we post the video. So
Perfect.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.